President Bola Tinubu has issued marching orders to security agencies to rescue the remaining female students of the Federal University Gusau, Zamfara State, who were recently abducted by terrorists. In a statement by Special Advisor to the President, Media and Publicity, Ajuri Ngelale, the President condemns the abduction of the students, noting that there is no moral justification for such heinous crimes against innocent victims whose only offense was their pursuit of quality education. While commiserating with all families directly impacted by this sad incident, President Tinubu affirms that his administration has a solemn duty to protect every Nigerian citizen, and in line with this commitment, assures the families of the abducted students that no effort will be spared in ensuring their safe return. Well, Dr. Rufai Oseni, congratulations on your honorary doctorate award, by the way. And your take on this very sad, and it's interesting because that's education. Yeah. You have the opportunity to go even further, and unfortunately, some people do not.
I mean, Ayo, it's shocking, and it's a sad one for Nigeria, that we are where we don't want to be again. This reminds me of what happened many years ago in Chibok. We are there again. Ayo, this reminds me of what has happened in the past as regards insecurity, even cases that we have forgotten about, like the Buni Yadi incident. Their only offense is that they've gone to university to get higher education, and they're kidnapped this way. But it's a reflection of the grand insecurity in the country as we speak today. And let nobody deceive us. We've made some appreciable progress, but we've also taken many, many steps backward. Almost every area you go in the country is unsafe. There's massive insecurity across board. And it looks as though we are not doing enough. I just hope the words of President Tinubu is not just mere rhetoric that says, oh, we will tackle them, we'll fight them, we'll provide safety and security. Yes, that's the role of the leader, the president of a country. He's the commander-in-chief, and the Constitution says the aim of the state will be providing safety and security for its citizens. But Nigeria has fallen short so many times as regards that. I just want to empathize with those families this morning, and I'd like to call on the security authorities to bring them back. And not only them, what about the NYSC students? I mean, NYSC core members that were attacked. What about cases of insecurity and kidnapping everywhere for ransom? Who thinks about those ones? What do we have in place to be able to tackle situations like this? Now we don't know that our schools are not safe. They're a flashpoint for insecurity. Many years ago, they instituted a safe school program that was to guide secondary schools. But now maybe we should start thinking of universities. Because it's obvious we've not learned anything. You remember what happened in the university in Kaduna? We didn't learn anything. And we keep going round and round in circles. Now we're here again. We'll see how this case plays out, but we'll call on our security forces to do more. They've been doing some admirable work thus far. We commend them for what they have done, but they need to do more, once and for all. And we need to stop this in our country.
Absolutely. Now the Arewa Consultative Forum has called this a threat to girl-child education in northern Nigeria. And you cannot but agree with them in terms of their disposition and their thoughts around this. Girls and a threat and an attack on girl education has been going on in northern Nigeria since and even perhaps before the kidnapping of the Chibok girls, whom, by the way, have not all been rescued. And we see this pattern play out again and again, especially in these parts. Rufai, you talked about the Safe School Initiative. 144 billion naira was budgeted earlier this year, and they said they were going to target 18 states in the country which were hotspot areas and which were prone to these kinds of kidnapping. This Safe School Initiative was geared towards secondary schools. In this particular incident, it was said that the Federal University in Gusau did not have a fence around this, even though the attack happened off campus, in accommodation off campus. But the reports say that the kidnappers actually went into the university, and there wasn't a lot of challenge in gaining entry into the university because it didn't have fences. What we then see happen is that rather than us have intelligence to prevent such incidents from happening, we are in many instances reactionary. So we'll begin to now say, oh, perhaps we need to build a fence in all universities in Nigeria. Perhaps, oh, we need to, they've said, show up security so that we don't have a repeat of this incident. Zamfara is a hotspot. Borno is a hotspot. We identify these places. What we now hear is that fathers and mothers are telling their girls not to go to school. They're telling their children not to go to school. And so it seems as if the terrorists, the kidnappers, the villains are winning this war against education in northern Nigeria. Don't forget, we keep on talking about the fact that Nigeria currently has the largest number of out-of-school children, and the north makes up a large number of this. This exacerbates the issues. It would show up the numbers. And so it's quite important to hear the president say that we're going to take urgent action and has ordered that these girls are rescued. We need them rescued, and beyond the rescuing of these girls, we need an assurance to parents and to students that when they go to school, they will be protected, they will have access to education, and they will not be deprived, in this regard. Very, very important. If not, we're going to see things get worse. The schools will be empty in northern Nigeria, and if they win the war in northern Nigeria, they're going to spread to other parts of Nigeria as well if we're not careful. So we need to nip this in the bud. And so I'm going to say again that excellent point, but beyond just orders, we have to have a permanent solution to this incessant attacks in the north, especially against our schools, against our girls, and against girls in education. Dr. Bati?
Yes,
good morning.
Good morning.
Good
Sorry, I thought it's so difficult sometimes to move around Lagos, most unpredictable. But look, this is very disheartening. 24 students of the Federal University Gusau, were abducted, and only 6 have been rescued so far through the combined efforts of the state government and the federal government. But what is curious here is that this is not new. We've been dealing with this, for more than a decade now. And particularly in cases of abduction, particularly in the northeastern part of the country, girls are always the ones that are targeted. So what is this special interest in girls who are, taken away by the kidnappers, by the terrorists, and are put in the family way and are subjected to all kinds of humiliation? And even when these girls escape, they come back with harrowing stories of, humiliation, forced into marriages, child marriage, in this particular case. That's one particular, area of concern, which has to do with the rights of the girl child within the Nigerian community. We've been talking about rights of the girl child forever, but this is the most extreme, form of violation of the rights of the girl child. Now, the second part of it is the increasing boldness of these terrorists, who attack schools. In this particular case, we were told that the bandits, in fact, divided themselves into 2 groups. One group made away with the girls who had been abducted. Another group faced the state agents, security agents that had come to rescue the girls. Look at that level of impunity. Look at that level of, boldness, which in itself underlines the sheer ineffectuality of the Nigerian state to deal with this perennial problem. The third issue, of course, has to be what you refer to, the Safe Schools Initiative. That Safe School Initiative, was initiated years back, I think as far back as 2013, 2014. And at that time, you had Gordon Brown, who had just left as Prime Minister of Great Britain. Shortly after that, he went into this idea of Safe Schools Initiative, in collaboration with then Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy, Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala. And I recall that the chairman of Arise Television, Luka Obagbena, was also part of that process. And as far back as that time, we've been talking about this Safe Schools Initiative. Now, about 10 years later, we're still at the same point. And we have had many episodes of schools that are not protected. Even the schools that seem to be protected, these bandits have the temerity to invade those schools and attack girls' hostels and abduct the girls. Now, the consequence of it, of course, is that many parents don't want to send their children to school. Many children have said they don't want to go to school because their future is uncertain. In a country where education is, the best thing that you can invest on. Somebody was telling us yesterday on another program that, look, the best ROI that you can get is by investing in education because of the linkage between education and human capital development. And in the part of the country where, education is at a disadvantage, then you'll find further disadvantage as a result of bandits and terrorists, attacking schools. Now, the fourth point. Is there a linkage between this, as Governor Lawal of Zamfara State has tried to establish, between illegal mining activities, reign of criminality in Zamfara State? Because he, in saying that illegal miners in Zamfara State should be shot on sight, was making the point that there's a linkage between these illegal miners and insecurity in the state. Okay, these are the dimensions of the matter that the federal government of Nigeria has a responsibility to look at, particularly as President Tinubu had given a marching order. One of the first things he did when he assumed office to the security chiefs to ensure that they brought banditry, kidnapping, insurgency to an end. Now, this shows that the security chiefs still have a lot to do, that the problem persists, and that perhaps, they have to rethink strategy. But more importantly, President Tinubu has a duty to ensure that every school is made safe for every Nigerian student. Previous administrations may not have done much in that area. The most recent administration may have dropped the ball in many ways, but this is a major wake-up call for the Tinubu administration to pay more attention to the safety and security of every student who desires to have education and who has the right under the Nigerian Constitution to be educated, and to be given opportunities to realize his or her potentials to the fullest under the rule of law.
Absolutely. Well, moving on to our next story, barring any last-minute breakthrough in discussions between the federal government and Labour over relief measures following government's removal of fuel subsidy, Nigeria Labour Congress, NLC, may declare an indefinite strike by midnight tomorrow. NLC President Joe Ajaero gave the indication while speaking on a Rise News channel yesterday. Ajaero said the federal government had more than enough time to resolve the dispute and address the concerns of the labor movement, but chose not to do so. But members of the Organized Private Sector of Nigeria, OPSN, expressed worry over the looming strike and warned that incessant industrial action was demarketing Nigeria, worsening the ailing economy and diminishing the livelihood of citizens. Though there were indications at the weekend that the federal government was making frantic efforts through informal channels to prevent the Labour Centre from embarking on the industrial action. The union first observed a 2-day nationwide warning strike on September 5 and 6 to show its readiness for the indefinite strike later on this month.
It's shocking that those that say strikes are demarketing Nigeria don't think of the fact that this bad faith being shown by government constantly demarkets Nigeria too. Why are we here? The government promised something and Simple did not do it. We had a committee. They said they were going to liaise and talk about how they were going to help workers cushion the effect of the new economic realities. Nothing happened. When Labour went for those meetings, they were met with very, very, very pregnant silence. And now we are where we are today. After the announcement made by President Tinubu on Inauguration Day, nothing has been done with Labour till date. A lot of promises have not been followed through. Just like I was asking yesterday, I thought they said September was going to be the month student loan will kick off. Where's the student loan? Just like this thing with the workers. And also in this conversation, NECA is also saying, yes, they shouldn't strike. We get NECA's position. Nobody wants to go and strike and shut the economy. But the government must show good faith. So the workers that bear the brunt of so much being expended in inflationary circumstance, in buying goods and commodity in the market, those workers should go and die. Who speaks up for them? Who speaks up for their families? People can't come to work any longer. Everybody pull rides now. People are suffering. I know some families that now do 101. In some cases, 001. It's only in the night they make dinner for the family because of this economic situation. And what are the workers asking for? Better pay, better remuneration. They have other ancillary issues as regards the conduct of management, the way some of their unions were treated and all of that. That's all they keep asking for. But in all of this, at some point, what did the government do? Arm twisted the union, took them to court, took them to industrial court at the point. Nobody wants strike, but the government should show good faith. In all of this, the Minister of Labour has not been able to solve the problem. Conversations always end up in a brickbats. And when Labour wants to go on strike, we blackmail them. What are we doing to ourselves as a nation? The government is supposed to be for its people, it's supposed to create solutions to the problem, bedeviling its workers, and all of that. But as the government created in a solution, zilch, nada, nothing, no solution. Mr. George was speaking on Arise TV yesterday, and he said, barring any last-minute changes, that they might go on strike anytime soon. Nobody wants to strike, but the government must do better.
What?
Yesterday, the NLC president, Joe Ajero, was my second guest on This Day Live, the Sunday talk show. And he made it categorically clear, and some of the things reported in the papers were the things he said yesterday. And he said, look, NLC will meet on Tuesday afternoon and take a decision. And that from what you could see, it was very clear that they will embark on a total and indefinite strike. So as we heard today, on Monday, barring any major development, and that major development, well, what effect will it have within 24 hours? It looks like we face a situation whereby organized labor will go out on a total and indefinite strike. And why would that happen? If it happens, it will simply be that government, because government has refused to listen to labor. When the fuel subsidy was removed and the president said fuel subsidy is gone, now labor had protested and they met with government about 2 or 3 occasions with specific demands. What were those demands? That government should return to the status quo ante, because, you know, saying fuel subsidy is gone will amount to punishing the Nigerian people. They also had some other demands about CNG, payment of arrears, increase in minimum wage, provision of palliatives, and all of that. You know, a cocktail of things. And government then said, okay, committees will be set up, a presidential steering committee, subcommittees, and that labor should focus on wage increase and palliatives. Now, according to Joe Ajero yesterday, government left the negotiating table. Even the promises that government made, there's no clarity with regard to those issues. Yes, palliatives are being distributed, but has anybody seen any effective distribution of palliatives? Organized labor before now said they were giving one bag of rice to 12 persons to go and share. And is that the way to solve the problem? Labor is also asking about refineries. Well, there isn't any clear hope that those refineries will be back soon. There are even stories that even the Dangote refinery may not be producing petrol, may just concentrate on diesel and kerosene and other products. So where does that leave the common man? I asked him the question that, is he optimistic that a strike this time around will be successful, will be total? Because the last time when they went out on a warning strike, September 5 and 6, it looked like a partial, success that they recorded. He said, well, that was a warning strike, and that even if they recorded 80% success, that should not be considered partial. I asked him a question about division within labor. He said there was no such thing as division, that the TUC and the NLC are on the same page on the basic issues. It could well be that the approach is different, but on the issue of addressing the plight of the poor, long-suffering people of Nigeria, that they are both on the same page. I drew his attention to the fact that the organized private sector, under the auspices of, the organized private sector, a man, NECA, NASIMA, NASI, even the small, NASME, the Small and Medium Scale Enterprises Association, that they are saying that further hardship will be imposed as a result of the proposed strike. And his simple response was that, okay, NECA is their social partner, but what is NECA saying? If your workers are paid their low wages and they are suffering, so is there no hardship in the country already? Manufacturers Association, his response was that, okay, how much manufacturing is in fact taking place? So these are all the issues, that were specifically raised. But we understand that government continues to talk to labor through backroom channels, and that today the federal government, through the Ministry of Labor and Employment, has also called for a meeting. And Simon Lalong, the minister in charge of that ministry, has persistently, consistently been preaching to labor. But we seem to have reached a point in this matter whereby, preachments may no longer work. And if that happens, as we've said repeatedly, the cost to the economy will be very high, because people, whose wages cannot take them home, and a lot of hardship in the marketplace. We are at a stage now where food inflation has hit the sky, not the roof. It has gone beyond the roof. It's gone to the skies. Again, another issue that President Tinubu has to address. Incidentally, all of these issues were in the Restored Hope Manifesto, about security of schools, about education being made affordable, safe, and secure. After all, that was why they came up with students' loan. All of those promises. And also about making Nigeria a place of hope for everybody. Now the Nigerian workers are saying this is a place of despair, as we have seen in just a few days after 100 days in office of the administration. So as President Tinubu returns, and as he has returned from the trip to the United Nations General Assembly, and he had promised there that he will do whatever it takes, even if some people are not happy about it, to make sure that he moves Nigeria forward. Well, the best way to move Nigeria forward is to move the people forward, give them hope, make them happy, and make this environment a place where all of us can be happy and secure.
Well, at midnight tomorrow, Labour would, if nothing happens in terms of, from the government side, embark on an indefinite strike, which has threatened to shut down the economy. Now, the unfortunate thing in all of this is that the people whom Labour is fighting for, unfortunately, would most likely bear the brunt, whether Labour goes on strike or whether Labour doesn't go, organized Labour doesn't go on strike. So it's almost as if the Nigerian people are caught between the devil and the deep blue sea. Organized Labour is going on strike, as has been established, based on certain demands that haven't been met by the federal government. And these demands are in the best interest of the people they represent, the masses, especially following the removal of fuel subsidy. On the other side, the federal government has not fulfilled a number of promises made, including the fact that they said within 2 weeks, organized labor should give them that time, space to do something, to respond to some of their critical demands. Chief of which, of course, is a review of the minimum wage of federal workers. Yes, there have been a bit of movements here and there, but not enough to satisfy organized labor's demands. There are a few other short-term and long-term demands that have been made, as has already been established. But one of the things we must say is that it is the body language of government. So they consistently have made promises, including timelines they've asked from Labour to be more patient, give us 2 more weeks, and nothing seems to have been done, at least to the obvious eye. Nothing. I don't know if they're working behind the scenes and they are not reporting, if it's a covert mission, but nothing seems to be done in this time period. And so what organized private sector groups are saying is, they don't even know if organized labor is still working for 200 million Nigerians, because if they go on strike, it's going to impoverish people further, it's going to make the lives of Nigerians harder, and they are shutting down businesses and so on. But they should be pushing that energy towards the federal government, who has put organized labor in this position to go on a strike, because it feels as if no one is speaking for the common man. The voices of the common man aren't being heard because policies are being made. Lives are being made harder, and it doesn't look like there's anything to cushion that effect. And so whilst no one wants a strike, because as they rightly said, it will affect the common man, it will affect the economy, but also the federal government has to act on some of the promises. So the next question, of course, that would be asked is, why has the federal government been loath to fulfill these promises? One of which is that there's simply no money to meet these demands. They don't have money to increase worker salary. Then it goes back to the conversation again as to then why were certain policy decisions made without it thoroughly thought through so that the people don't suffer as much. There are so many questions to be asked, and there doesn't seem to be obvious answers to this. Yes, everyone has said it, from international organizations to analysts here in Nigeria. Fuel subsidy had to go. However, the process of implementation, the timeline given, wasn't done properly. So we find ourselves here again. My heart goes to the Nigerian people, because either which way, whether the strike goes on or it doesn't, if we remain status quo, the people still suffer. People are unable to eat. Inflation is high. People cannot go to work. People are, crime rate is, people are going into desperate measures just to keep body and soul alive. And so, again, pushing back the ball into the courts of the federal government, not organized labor.